All right, I'm done. I have woven my band, plenty, more than what I really need, and it's time to actually make the watch band itself. I decided to do this completely by hand. That way, if you don't have a sewing machine, you could still accomplish this with simple tools that you can get at any craft store or even a Walmart or Target or place like that. So let's get into it, and you are going to need the following tools. The band itself, you want to make sure that this is at least double your wrist circumference. You're going to need the ends that latch into the watch, and you are going to need the Apple Watch for this. The way you remove the band on Apple Watch is, I don't know if you can see that little button there. You press that, it should allow you to slide the watch band out. My hands are slipping. There we go. Come on. Here we go. All right. You're also going to need either Velcro or snaps. I have both here. I think I'm going to try Velcro just because it's easy. But you could, of course, close it with snaps as well. You're going to need sewing needles. Well, just one sewing needle, but I have two. One I prefer to sew with snaps. The other I prefer to sew the Velcro with. This is my Velcro. Figured this was a nice neutral color, kind of a gray color. Could have used black or white. It all would have worked well. You'll need some kind of thread. This is silamide, which is a pre-waxed thread. You definitely don't need this. Any kind of thread from the store will work just fine. And you're going to need your scissors. So I'm just going to thread my needle, which is hard to do when you've got a camera in front of you. But hopefully I should be able to succeed. Yep. And I am going to use the thread doubled. When I sew, I don't always use the thread doubled, but in this case, I'm going to take both ends of the thread and I'm going to tie them in a knot. I use a tailor's knot, but you can look at how to do that in detail in my video on knots. I'll link it here. You can also just create a loop, wrap the tails through twice, and pull it taut. And that way we're ready to sew. You want to look at your end, and you're going to notice that on the watch band fitting, one side has 3 of the same color dot, and the other side has 2 dots in the dark color and 1 light. This is the side that's going to go on the bottom, and that's important to remember. I'm just going to cut into my band so I have a nice clean edge. I'm going to thread it down through the side with the 3 black dots. I'm going to fold this edge under about 1/4 of an inch. Fold this down. At this point, if you had a sewing machine, you could very easily run this under the sewing machine and be done with it. But I'm going to sew it by hand. And the way I'm going to do this, just to encapsulate it, is I'm actually going to start by pushing the thread from the inside of these 2 layers up. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off these long tails. And I'm going to do what's called a whip stitch. So I'm just going to go up from the bottom. I know this is a dark color and hard to see. Up through the bottom and up through the top. Up through the bottom and up through the top. And this creates a spiral of stitching around the outside edge. Any loose threads from where I cut the band, I'm going to push in And now I can do the same, except I'm going to not go all the way through the outside of the band. I'm just going to pick up a few stitches and go through. And then I'm also going to close up this side just like I did on the other side. So this is continuing that same whip stitch where I'm going from underneath, up from the bottom, up through the top. There are lots of great tutorials online that some of them I use in my sewing classes to talk about how to do the whip stitch. It's a really simple stitch. Essentially, if you sew in the same direction over and over and over again, either up from the bottom or down from the top, you're going to create a little spiral, and that is the whip stitch. Now, I like to do a French knot to end my thread. So I'm going to take the dead end, not the live end. The live end is the end that's coming out of the needle. The dead end is the end that's coming out of the fabric. And I'm going to wrap it around the needle 3 or 4 times. I'm going to push those threads to the bottom and pull my needle through, and that's going to create a little knot. And then I take a few more stitches after that just to secure it. I'm ready to cut. Some smaller snips would probably made this easier than these giant scissors. There we go. Easy as that to attach. We want to make sure that our bulk, our folded end, is on the same side where we have the one metal stud in the middle. Next, I'm going to take the watch band that I took off the watch, lay it out with the watch itself to determine how long a piece of webbing I need. So I'm going to take that amount and add to it the amount up to the edge of the watch. And I'm probably going to do a little more just to be safe. I wove plenty for this very reason. Okay. And now I can take my other end, my other fitting. I want to make sure that the top side is up. So that's the side with the 3 dots. And then I'm going to make sure that the top side's up on this side. So the 3 dots. And I'm actually going to come up from the bottom because I want this to wrap around the outside of the wristband. All right, now we can insert our watch into this band, or insert the band into the watch. Okay, that's in there securely. That's in there securely. And now I'm going to try this on. So this is going to be bigger than what I need, and that's on purpose. Oh, this is already so much more comfortable than the other plastic band. So I'm going to mark where I want it to end, somewhere around there. And I'm going to just cut. You could mark this with a fabric marker, but it's easier just to cut it. All right, I'm going to take this off carefully. I'm going to fold this down 1/4 of an inch, then fold it again, maybe about a 1/2 inch, just so we have a secure edge. And then I'm going to whip this down just like I whipped the previous. All right, that is sewn down. Now we need to investigate our Velcro. So I have noticed that my Velcro, which is not sticky back Velcro, you definitely don't want to use sticky back Velcro. My Velcro is about the exact same width. So this is 1-inch Velcro. I wove this to 25 centimeters, or 25 millimeters, forgive me. And 25 millimeters is about 1 inch, but I need it to be a little bit narrower. So I'm actually going to take the Velcro apart, and I'm going to sew the soft side. There's a scratchy side which has hooks and a soft side which has loops. And I'm going to sew the soft side to where it's going toward my wrist. So that way if it does misalign, it's not going to scratch me. And you'll notice in the Velcro that there is an area without any loops. And I'm actually going to cut that area off to make it a little narrower. The other thing I'm going to do, I like to round the corners of my Velcro because it's woven out of a heavy polyester kind of fabric, or nylon probably. I'm going to square off this edge. And if you leave those corners, they can be pretty pokey. And if we're going to be wearing this a lot, especially to bed, we don't want any pokey edges. Hope that was in focus a little bit. It's very hard to do this. I don't like that this is looking crooked. Okay. And now we're going to sew this to the same side that we just sewed down. You could go all the way to the edge if you like, or you could leave a little bit. So there'd be a little flap. I'm going to go almost all the way to the edge with mine. So once again, thread up your needle. And the reason I had 2 needles, I mentioned one I was going to use for Velcro and one, if I needed to, was going to use for snaps, is I like a really, really thin, fine, short needle for sewing Velcro. The thicker your needle is, the harder it's going to be to get through your Velcro. So now I'm going to do that same whip stitch. This is where a thimble would come in handy because it is hard to hand sew Velcro. And I'm going to do that same whip stitch, trying my best not to let the threads go all the way to the other side because I want this to look really nice. Okay, I'm going to whip all the way around this and I'll be back. Just a little pro tip. If you don't have a thimble, I do, but I wanted to make this as easy as possible for people who don't have a lot of sewing tools. It is hard to sew through the Velcro, but you can get your stitch lined up and then press the needle against the table to push the needle through, and then pick it up with your hand, and that gives you a nice secure stitch without wearing out your fingertips. Alright, that's the last stitch. I'm going to knot off in that same way with a French knot. A few extra stitches. And I have my loop side of Velcro on. So at this point, we need to put the watch on again. And see exactly where we need to put the hook side. So I can see that this goes up to just about, and this is tight. I want it as tight as I can get it because I can always loosen it. This goes up to about half an inch away from the edge. So I'm actually going to count the dots. 1, 2, 3 dots down. And then I'm going to go slightly below that, and that's where I'm going to start my 1, 2, 3 dots. I'm going to start slightly below that to put my hook tape. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to trim off my sides to make it a little narrower. I'm going to try to square up my ends as best as I can. Then I'm going to cut my corners off. Try to round them if I can. But even cutting them straight can help prevent the pokiness. Alright, Time to sew this on in the exact same way. And just like that, my Apple Watch band is done. Gotta get everything lined up. Now, I could have made this part shorter and come over here, but when my wrist is setting on something, I didn't want it to irritate or get caught, so that's why I put the closure up there. And there you have it. My Apple Watch band is done. It is so comfortable. I'm so happy to have it. It's adjustable. It's going to be really easy to sleep with. Because I pre-washed it, I can wash my hands or go swimming with it. It shouldn't shrink or have any issues there. But I wanted to talk about a few possibilities if you don't have an Inkle Loom. The first possibility is if you have a rigid heddle loom, you could easily do this with a rigid heddle loom. The only thing is you can't beat with the heddle. You would still need to use the belt shuttle to beat because we want it to compress, we want it to be warp faced. So that would be an easy option. You could also do it on a floor loom. I very rarely do really narrow projects on my floor loom just because it's better. It's almost always warped in something wider, so I wouldn't do that. If you have no access to weaving equipment and still want to make your own watch band, you can do this, but I do not recommend buying webbing. So cotton webbing from the store is actually too thick to go through these watch ends. So I would recommend looking at something like a cotton or rayon ribbon, and you could do this same sewing technique with ribbon. So even if you don't weave at all, you can still make your own Apple Watch band with these wonderful end fittings made by Happy Sen, I think. Let me double check the name. Yep, Happy Sen, Happysen. I'll link it down below. Once again, thank you for watching. My name is Trent. I'm the Left Right. Have a wonderful day and a happy new year.